You've worked the infirmary at this prison for 6 years. Mostly it's sprained wrists from the yard, bad teeth, blood pressure meds for men who are never getting out. You tell yourself you're not really part of this place. You just fix what's broken and go home at 5. Tonight, at 11 p.m., a guard bangs on your office door. Inmate down in D block. You grab your bag and follow him through 3 sets of gates that lock behind you one at a time, each one a little louder than the last. The man on the floor is barely breathing. Stab wound, lower abdomen, homemade blades still lodged in the tissue. Around him, a loose circle of inmates who saw everything and will tell the guards they saw nothing. You kneel down. You start working the way you're trained to: pressure, assessment, stabilize, and transport. The guard leans down next to you and says the words that change the whole night. "No transport tonight. Handle it here." You look up at him. You tell him this man needs a real operating room, real surgeons, blood on standby. The guard doesn't blink. He says a truck full of contraband got seized this morning because somebody in this block talked to the wrong person. This man is the one who talked. If he goes to the outside hospital, word gets out that the prison protected a snitch, and 3 other men become targets by morning. Fix him here, and this stays contained. Send him out, and you might be signing 4 death warrants instead of preventing one. You don't get to call anyone for advice. You don't get a second opinion. You have a first aid kit built for sprained ankles and a man dying on a concrete floor. You clean the wound the best you can under bad lighting. You remove the blades slowly, watching the tissue for arterial bleeding you can't afford. You don't have proper surgical tools, so you improvise. Sutures meant for minor lacerations, antiseptic meant for scraped knuckles, all of it stretched far past what it's designed for. You work for 40 minutes with a guard standing over your shoulder the entire time, not to help, to make sure you don't reach for the phone. The man survives the night, barely. You don't sleep. You go back to your office at 6 a.m. and sit there staring at a wall, and you tell yourself this was a one-time exception, an emergency, the kind of impossible call any doctor might have to make once in a career. 3 weeks later, a different guard finds you at lunch, says there's a situation in the West Wing. You already know before he finishes the sentence. This time, it's not 1 man. It's 2, both with injuries that don't match any story you're given. You stop asking what happened. You've learned the questions don't get honest answers, and asking anyway just makes you a witness to something you'll be pressured to unknow. You treat what's in front of you. That becomes the job now, not asking, just treating. Word moves fast inside walls like these. Within 2 months, you're not just the infirmary doctor anymore. You're the person certain inmates request by name when something happens that can't go through official channels. You start keeping a second set of supplies in a locked cabinet, things you requisition through channels nobody double checks, because the official inventory can't explain what you're actually using it for. You tell yourself the same thing every time. You're saving lives. That part is true. Nobody you treat has died on your table. But you notice something changing in the way certain inmates look at you now. Not gratitude exactly, something closer to ownership. You're not just the doctor anymore. You're an asset, and assets get used. 6 months in, the warden calls you into his office. This isn't unusual on its own. What's unusual is that he closes the door himself instead of letting his assistant do it. He tells you there's been an internal audit, supply discrepancies in the infirmary, certain medications showing usage numbers that don't match patient logs. You feel your stomach drop before he even finishes the sentence, because you already know exactly which numbers he's talking about. He doesn't accuse you outright. He says something quieter, almost gentle, which somehow makes it worse. He says he trusts you understand how important it is that the infirmary's records stay clean going forward. He says the men you've been helping appreciate discretion, and appreciation, inside a place like this, tends to come with protection attached. He's not threatening you. He's letting you know you're already protected, whether you ask to be or not. You leave his office understanding something for the first time. You didn't become useful to this place by accident. You became useful because you were good at your job in a place that quietly needed someone who was good at exactly this, patching up what the system needs patched without the system ever officially knowing about it. A year passes. You've treated 11 off-the-books injuries. Every single patient survived. You tell yourself that number matters, that it's the only number that should matter. 11 people are alive because you didn't ask questions you weren't supposed to ask. Then one night, the call comes for someone you actually know. Not a stranger with a story you've learned to stop wanting. A young inmate you've treated for 2 years for a bad knee. Someone who talks to you about his kids during checkups. Someone who calls you doc like it means something. He's been beaten badly. You work on him for over an hour. When he's stable enough to speak, he looks at you and says something you didn't expect. He says he heard this is how it works here now. That if something happens and it can't go through the front door, they bring it to you instead, and it disappears the way problems are supposed to disappear in a place like this. You realize, hearing it said out loud in his voice instead of yours, exactly what you've become. Not the doctor who happens to work in a prison anymore, the prison's actual solution for the things it can't afford to have discovered. You think back to your first week here, 6 years ago, when you told yourself you weren't really part of this place, that you just fixed what was broken and went home at 5. You go home at 5 most days now, same as always. But somewhere along the way, without one single moment that felt like a choice, you stopped being someone who worked inside these walls. You became one of the walls.